Hey, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be getting into pay transparency working as a CNA. I made a TikTok video showing my pay progression over the years as being a CNA. I started in about 2017 at a nursing home, and I started at $13 at that job, all the way up to make $46 an hour right now as a travel CNA, so let's break it down a little bit more. My first job fresh as a new little baby CNA was working at a nursing home. It was a really nice nursing home, and they paid a little bit less than the other facilities in my area. I definitely could have been making like 16, 14, somewhere around there, but I chose to work at a nicer facility, at lower patient ratios, so I could get a good grip on being a CNA before I started overwhelming myself just trying to make more money. But that job I did make $13 an hour, where I was working a ratio of like 2 to 16 residents, and I felt like it was worth it at the time. I was just starting as a CNA, so I didn't really know, and it was about 2017. And I worked that staff job making $13 an hour for about a year before I applied to work for an agency, because you need a year experience for the agency that I applied for. When I applied for that agency, I was still working my staff job, but the agency pay was about $18 an hour. And there wasn't too many facilities in my hometown that I wanted to work at, so I think I only picked up like 1 or 2 shifts at different facilities, and it was mostly okay. But a lot of the facilities, one thing about when you're working agency, are going to be run down really bad. You're going to have high ratios. It's just going to be crazy, and you're going to be working for that little bit of extra money. So I didn't pick up too much in my hometown. Fast forward to 2018. So by this time I had been a CNA for like about a year, a little bit more than a year, and I was moving to Iowa City to go to college. When I went to college, I decided I didn't want to work a staff job because there was going to be enough per diem shifts around the area, and my primary focus was school. When I moved to my hometown to Iowa City, the agency pay bumped up for that area to $20 an hour. That was the minimum that I was always making when I picked up shifts, and a lot of times I didn't pick up shifts until they had incentives for like emergency pay and stuff like that, which would give me like $4 to $8 extra per shift, so it would bring me up to like $24, $28 an hour. Eventually in that time was during COVID. The base pay did increase for that area to $24 an hour. And I know for my particular agency, it depends on the area where you're at to what the pay is, whether you're starting at 20 or 24. But when I stopped working per diem shifts, my base pay was at 24 an hour, and then you would have the pickup incentives on top of that. And after I graduated college, I continued working as a CNA because I realized I didn't want to use my degree that I worked for. That's a whole different video. But I also wanted to live in Chicago and live comfortably, and I know to do that, I wouldn't be able to just make $24 an hour. I could, but I wouldn't be living comfortably. That's when I finally decided to take my first travel assignment. My first travel assignment, I actually ended up working for 2 years. It was about 2 hours away from Chicago, and I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. So I'd only be away from my home for 2 nights, 3 days. On that contract, I can't remember the exact rates, but when you travel, your hourly is typically lower, and then you get a non-tax stipend for meals and housing, which is typically where you're making like a lot of your money. How they advertise pay for travel assignments is by week. I think I started off around like $12.50 a week, and by the time I left after those 2 years, I was making about $14.80 a week. And I would see a lot of that money because, like I said, the most of your money is in that untaxed stipend, so you're seeing a lot of that $14.80. Eventually, all my traveler friends ran that place out of money, and they just had no choice but to get rid of us, even though they still needed us because they just didn't have any more money to pay us. At that time is when I decided to go into corporate and think about using my degree, see if I wanted to use my degree. Worked in corporate for about a year, didn't make any money, decided I hated it, and ended up back in healthcare where I'm at right now, working a travel assignment and going back to school for radiology. And this is currently my highest travel assignment that I've ever worked, but I am working in Wisconsin, way further from home. I don't get to go home every week. I'm here for the full contract. This assignment, I'm making $16.90 per week. So as you can tell, being a staff CNA and being a travel CNA are 2 completely different worlds for many reasons, but the pay being the biggest thing, because I went from making $13 an hour in 2013 to now making upwards of $42 an hour if we change that $16.90 a week to hourly. In reality, it's more than $42 an hour because that $42 an hour is not fully taxed. Now, of course, there is pros and cons of being a travel CNA. It's not as easy as you can make it seem. Just because the money is good doesn't mean everything in being a travel CNA is good. And I can make a whole video about the pros and cons of being a travel CNA because there's definitely some things. Even though CNAs typically don't start at only $13 an hour now, even what they do start at 16, 17, 18, 15 is craziness. Like, you have to do so much work. Being a CNA is so much work, so underappreciated and extremely underpaid for all that you have to do, and you're still just not even getting paid what you should be. And even when you're traveling, sometimes I feel like, yeah, I'm getting paid good and I have to be grateful that I'm getting this pay, which I am. But still, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to go through all of this just to make a livable wage as a CNA. It's crazy. And I always knew being a CNA wasn't my end goal, and I wanted to go back to school, so I am so excited to be starting classes this week for my radiology program. I just want to give a little bit more insight on the pay as a CNA, because you definitely can make a comfortable living, but you are going to have to sacrifice a lot more than if you were to go back to school and get a different job. Because honestly, to be a CNA, you're going to be having to work really hard, overtime hours, or traveling to make a livable wage, because what they pay you for staff is just not It's not it. But I hope this video helped you. If you're a staff CNA thinking about traveling, I definitely recommend it. You definitely have to weigh your pros and cons. To me, obviously the pros weigh out the cons. It just makes going to work that much easier knowing that you're being paid well and you can actually live comfortably on the pay. If you have any other questions about getting into traveling or my experience traveling, definitely comment them down below and I can make a video. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I wish you luck if you're thinking about getting started in traveling. Bye!